Welcome to the Hidden Why Podcast, episode 1029. My interview with Chris Lynam, and we're discussing the choreography of customer service. Enjoy. G'day, Chris. Welcome to the Hidden Why Podcast. Great to have you here this morning or this evening, wherever you are.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here, Lee.
Whereabouts are you?
I am in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay. So what's early evening, early afternoon?
It is, early afternoon, and I live in a city called Livermore, which is funnily known as the other wine country. We're not too far from Napa, but there's a bumper sticker that you'll see around town in my city that says Napa makes auto parts and Livermore makes wine. So there's kind of like this fun little wine rivalry in my city.
Nice. Well, mate, great to have you here today. We've got an interesting conversation today, really, and I've never had an owner of a co-owner of an Arthur May dance studio on the show, or a owner of a dance studio full stop on the show. So interesting that we start there. But you've written a book called The Choreography of Customer Service, High Touch Service in a Touch-Free World, and I think a lot of the people listening out there are some way in their businesses or their jobs involved in the service field. So it's a pretty important part, and certainly something that I'm very passionate about is making sure that the service that I give to my clients is top level. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this conversation. But let's just jump back a bit. How did you go from, because you were a dance teacher and now you own several of the top Arthur Murray dance studios in the world?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up as a dancer. In fact, my father took dance lessons. I kind of found out about it. I was house sitting for him, and I found this really odd collection of music, and I was like, I never knew my dad was into like this Latin music, and it was really, really bizarre. And then it turns out that he started taking dance lessons to just to get in better shape. His doctor told him he was a diabetic, and he needed to make some drastic changes, and so he started taking lessons every single day, and I made fun of him relentlessly as a young punk, maybe 19 or 20-year-old, and I just didn't understand it. And then he said, "You really have to give it a try." And I was like, "Dad, I am not 100 years old. You'll never catch me ballroom dancing." And literally within maybe a year and a half, I was an Arthur Murray dance instructor. And so, it was just kind of bizarre, but I stumbled into it through swing dancing through a friend, and fell in love with the idea that you could go to a club and ask someone to dance, and then when the dance was done, you could say thank you and walk them back. It was like I went back in time, and I had been to nightclubs every single weekend, and you were just lucky if somebody would dance with you. And this time it was so polite, and it was like a throwback, and it was like all of the right social ingredients that really made you feel confident. And I really loved dancing, but I just didn't have any formal training until I went through this training program at Arthur Murray Dance Studio in 1999, and I intended it to be my summer job. And then that was, over 2 decades ago.
Wow. Something about dancing then, hey? So, it's interesting. You say you go to a dance club and like the old days, I guess, you ask someone to dance and have the dance and thank you and move on. Yeah.
It was incredible how polite it was. And there was all this, the social kind of graces of another era at these swing nights. And you'd see people escorting, the guys would escort girls onto the dance floor, on their arm, and everyone's, back, people were wearing like vintage clothing and stuff too. So it really looked like a scene out of a movie or something. And it was so special to be a part of. And in comparison, like the stark contrast to nightclubs where it's sort of like the predator and the prey, where guys were kind of gradually moved towards someone they had targeted. And if the girl accepted your advances, then it meant a lot more than just a dance. But it was just great to kind of be out of that element and into something like that was just felt like it was about the dancing and just about meeting people and not about anything else.
Yeah, it's cool. So a lot of benefits from dance. You talked about fitness there. What other, benefits or pros do you see about the dance industry? And then someone listening out there that goes, yeah, I've always thought about doing some dancing, but I've never done it yet.
Yeah, well, I think dancing in general, what's really odd is if you think back to like your grandparents' age, that everybody did dinner and dancing was like a normal date night, right? And then somewhere, and I don't know if it was disco or if it was the 60s or what happened, but at somewhere along the way it became dinner and a movie. And so dinner and a movie kind of killed off the date night of dinner and dancing. And so when we have couples that come in to take dance lessons together, we explain to them, you might be the only couple out of your circle of friends that's actually doing something like this together, where you're working on your communication and you're getting a chance to do something exciting, and you're working in tandem with each other. And we like to tell couples, like, that's probably putting you in the top 1% of couples, and how many couples go to dinner and a movie versus how many couples are still doing dinner and dancing. And so it's really awesome to see that. Another really big benefit that I have a real attachment to is the mental health benefits of ballroom dancing specifically. There was a study that showed that ballroom dancing outperformed everything from crossword puzzles to reading a book to light exercise, Sudoku, like all these things for brain health and to help offset any of the degenerative qualities of or degenerative things of symptoms of things like Alzheimer's and dementia. And my aunt about 4 years ago passed away from an aggressive strain of Alzheimer's. And we just happened to have a student in our school that about 2 weeks after that happened, my wife was visiting in one of our locations, and this wonderful student of ours named Nancy said, "Would you guys ever be interested in doing a partnership with the Alzheimer's Association?" And it was just this perfect serendipitous moment. And so we helped facilitate a global partnership between the Alzheimer's Association and Arthur Murray International. And so yeah, brain health is one of those things that you don't feel like it's going to affect you. Like that never really, I knew about that benefit as a teacher, but it didn't really hit home until I lost somebody close to me. And so that really became like a rallying cry for our company. And we've had countless, other franchisees and students and managers and teachers that have all just kind of gotten on board, and we've been able to turn this into kind of a yearly tradition where we try to raise awareness and raise money for the Alzheimer's Association.
Yeah, nice, man. What in particular is it about ballroom dancing that is more beneficial for brain health?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like if you think of exercise, like if you were trying to depressurize from work or something, you could jump on a treadmill and you could get the physical workout that can get endorphins going, and you might temporarily like suspend all the things that you have to think about, the meetings that you need to have and stuff like that. But eventually your brain kind of catches up with that because you're not occupying enough of your brain simultaneously. You might be just kind of triggering one portion of it. With ballroom, you're using something that's physical, but there's also spatial awareness that you're using. In addition, you're doing something that's really creative and musical at the same time. And so what happens is that it's kind of firing all these areas of the brain where if you were just reading or if you were just doing a crossword puzzle, you might be highlighting one area, but ballroom in particular, you've got to kind of map out the whole room.
Yeah, nice. As a couple, I mean, relationship wise, very beneficial and powerful for couples to create that connection with something like dancing. How do couples get into something like this? Is it one partner suggesting let's do it? How do they select the dance that they're going to do?
Yeah, good question. We've had for a while, Arthur Murray went through this phase where they said that the majority of their clients they referred to as golf widows, and it's sort of a sad moniker, but it would be husbands that refused to dance, but the wives that really loved dancing, and so they just turned it into their own hobby, and the husbands would go and golf, and that was just it. And with shows like Dancing with the Stars or Strictly Come Dancing, those shows started to kind of put into the, into the limelight, a lot of these great athletes and celebrities that were males that were actually getting a great workout and having a great time. And so I think those things kind of helped become a catalyst towards more men being excited and not just dragged in, but excited to get started. And so, so most couples, sometimes you'll have a guy that's, coming in, you can tell that he's received, his marching orders to come in and take a dance lesson. But a lot of times now we're getting guys that are surprising their wives or their girlfriends with dance lessons. And, and then what we do is we teach in a way where, with Arthur Murray, the man himself, Arthur Murray, really wasn't a super talented dancer, but he just wanted to make dancing accessible to guys like him. So we always think of him as kind of like the Steve Jobs of dancing. Right. And he just made it simple and accessible. And so, people will come in, they'll learn from our curriculum, and then they're able to learn, 4 to 6 dances in the same time it might take someone to learn one. And a lot faster than if somebody was trying to just, hoof it out watching a YouTube video or something, trying to copy moves from a movie or something like that.
But I think that whole social connection, getting back to some of our roots and getting tribal again with people and watching other people do it, the whole idea for me is I'm not a dancer, right?
Yeah.
My wife is probably not a dancer, but for me and her to go into a dance studio, that'd be very intimidating for both of us, I'm sure. But very empowering too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And there's so many we talk just as much with our staff about like the importance of understanding someone's comfort zone and what's their style under stress and all these things that come up. And we make analogies to everything from karaoke to bungee jumping to kind of talk about what it's like for someone walking across the floor for the first time. For me personally, I set up an interview at Arthur Murray when I was, way back in the day. And when I set it up, they were excited to meet me. We set it up for the evening time. I drove across town. I parked my car in front of the studio, and then I couldn't get out of the car. And so my car stayed running. I turned the lights off on my headlights, but I looked in the window and I saw people dancing on this dance floor, and I realized I'd have to walk past all of them to go in to show up for my interview. And so I drove home. And I knew I was doing, like, my brain. I think that your brain is the best marketing machine ever in existence, right? And so my brain was sending me all these kind of pop-up ads of why it was okay to drive home. Oh, they probably weren't expecting you tonight. They didn't really mean they wanted to meet you in person, or, all these things. But part of me at this kind of gut was I was so disappointed with myself. And I went home and I yelled at myself in the mirror. And I screamed like, "You're better than this," and then I ended up going back the following day, and I just pretended like my interview was happening that afternoon. And I walked in, and a manager happened to be there, and then he hired me. And awesome. But that's thinking about that. I feel like every one of our new students is going through some version of that.
Yeah.
That they could have easily driven away, but they didn't, and they kind of crossed the threshold. And now it's our job to kind of meet them where they are and to make them feel like this is going to be fun, quick, and easy, and then we can kind of make the magic happen from there.
That's probably a good lead into the service piece of your business, at least, and why you wrote this business. I assume you offer first-class or world-class service to your clients, which is probably why you've written this book, and you're probably recognised for that too, not only through the success of your businesses, but also through the testimonies from the people that work with you.
Oh yeah, it's I said this on another interview, and it not really controversial, but what I was saying is I believe that Arthur Murray, because it's sort of shielded by this hobby that not many people do, and so because of how niche it is, not many people can really discover what's behind the surface of like this company and how much training goes in to the staff, not just in their dance skill and their teaching skill, but in their communication and service skills. And so I told the interviewer that I believe that Arthur Murray dance teachers secretly are the best customer service reps in the world. And I said that even they're going to beat Disneyland because the product of Disneyland is something that everybody wants to consume. They're all excited to be there. Nobody feels threatened walking through the front gates of Disneyland. They feel they feel tremendously excited. Excuse me. They're excited to be there. They smell the hot dogs. They smell the popcorn. They see the rides. They see the characters, and they're already kind of set. The culture is sort of taken over at that point, and then the service kind of keeps people coming back. And in our industry, they're stepping into an area that feels like the deep end of a pool, and they're deathly afraid of swimming. And so it's the service. It has to be the beginning of the culture, and then it's the thing that's that's the tail end that is going to repeat the business coming back. And we know that about ourselves. I mean, we don't walk around and say we're the greatest ever or anything like that, but we know what we're up against. We don't have a roller coaster or the smell of corn dogs or anything like that to make people immediately feel enamored to be there.
So why is service so important for business out there? Because, I mean, not just dance studios, but all businesses. I'm in real estate myself.
Yeah. I think part of what we didn't really notice until the pandemic, in my opinion, is it took everybody having momentum completely washed out to really realize what you have, what's the foundation of the culture in terms of service that you have. When you take all of the momentum away, when you take all of the new leads away, when you take all of the existing kind of sales funnels and things like that, when you take all of that away and it's all put on pause, you can really evaluate. I heard an analogy, and they said, sometimes you need to dock a ship to get all the barnacles off, and then it's gonna sail so much smoother. But you couldn't do that while you're out at sea, and so for us. I think that service is something we had to really evaluate what are we training on? What was our culture like? And how much was momentum of our business and the structure of everything? How much was momentum kind of disguising things that we really needed to improve? So I think that unfortunately service, people skills, and dancing are kind of similar in the fact that people sort of believe that it's this innate kind of nature type thing instead of a nurture type of a skill, that it's something that can be taught and it's a process and it's a recipe that you can follow. And I've been one of those people that's hired people because they were nice, thinking that equated to great service. And even a nice person, that's a gateway to great service, but that's not the end all. Yeah. And I think that's something that every single business in America, there was a study that showed that like businesses were losing over $60 billion in lost sales due to bad customer experiences, and this was all before the pandemic. And so I think if that number doesn't kind of scream something is wrong, something needs to be improved, I don't know what does.
Yeah, no, good things. What is where do we start with good customer service? Like if you're teaching someone now. What do we look at first?
Yeah, I think that part of it is, I would say the first step is examining what autopilot looks like and really kind of fleshing that out. I think the clearer that we can make like an enemy kind of transparent and like, visible to everybody, then the more we can kind of strategize on how we're going to solve that problem. And so I think that where a lot of customer service situations sort of fail, that may work from time to time because the product is good enough, or maybe because the client needs it, but then they're never going to come back, is because the professional on the other end is sort of on autopilot. And so they're stuck in the present tense, and they're not really considering like, where this person came from, what's their backstory, what are the challenges that they're up against. And then they're not also creating something going into the future, like, what's the return on investment? How will you know that this was the right product, and what are the telltale signs that we're on the right path? If you think about like any coach that you've ever had in sports, they may have been, the best people at challenging you, as an athlete, but they would never do that if they didn't care about you as a person and maybe your contribution to the team. And so So I really believe that, when our team and I think in teams in general, when you kind of draw from the past and then you really reevaluate what you're doing in the present, and then you sort of create some fun challenges and set benchmarks for yourself and for your client going forward in the future, that's how you can make a connection right away that most kind of people on autopilot could never do. And that's an immediate differentiator.
So what you're saying is really, number one, listening to your customer.
For sure.
And on an individual basis, not as a robotic sort of retail basics, all the customers are the same. You know what I mean? Like, I've come from a retail background, and you can't individualize that service, I would think, but maybe you can by listening to each your customer.
Oh, for sure. Like, even in retail, I think it's such a great starting point too, is that, there's a big difference. Everybody knows kind of the standard script of a lot of retail associates, right? So they know that they're going to say, "Hey, can I put you in a fitting room?" Or, "Can I help you find something?" And all these things. And I think that it's amazing how we've sort of have these prepared responses. Like, this could all just be done by an android, on both sides. And just by changing up the questions that you might start asking immediately kind of changes up the experience. So, for example, if someone said, instead of just jumping to a compliment and saying, "Lee, that suit looks incredible on you. Can I get you 2 more in different colors or something?" Instead of saying that, I could ask a question like, "So Lee, where do you imagine wearing this suit first? If we can get this fit completely right." And then now I'm changing up that standard question. I'm not immediately showering you with praise and compliments, but I'm just interested. And I think that, unfortunately,
visualizing that service, isn't it, really? Like, straight up with the question like that.
Oh, yeah.
And you could ask that question to any customer.
Yeah.
But again, it's visualizing it.
Exactly. And I think that it's sad to think of that someone just showing that they care is going to be such a huge differentiator. But unfortunately, that's the nature of what we're up against, And if you think about some of the giant companies in the retail space that have either, reduced the number of stores or closed altogether, I think that a lot of it just has to do with they're stuck in this really tough cycle of how quickly can I get somebody operational, and do we have a good employee manual that can at least give them survival skills, and then can I find someone that's nice, and equipping somebody beyond that, to just humanize the experience. Then people aren't going to trade out that sort of autopilot semi-human experience for just shopping online instead, and I think that's the unfortunate byproduct.
Yeah, certainly shopping online takes away that connection, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That's something that, I guess for those people that do like shopping is something that they still do it for, is to get that personal touch and service. But if you're not getting that, then it's easy to understand why you go online.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, like, people will shop in person. I've done this. I've shopped in person just to scout things out to be better at online shopping, and it's just because, unfortunately, there's people that kind of want to be too busy to help people, and there's these weird kind of social, etiquette things that are starting to become missing because they're kind of slapping together, a team of service people, and it, for me, I really believe a lot of times, especially in retail, but it could be in any team when it comes to service, is that everybody is really suffering from the bystander effect, where everyone thinks that somebody else is gonna kind of take the reins, and then we all sort of watch a customer service crime being committed. And unfortunately, when that happens over and over again, you sort of lose any sort of interest. Like, you just kind of see it like it's just another, they'll be back, and unfortunately now, because of the pandemic and because of the rise of online shopping and stuff, like, that's not a guarantee anymore.
No. And some businesses try to get that customer service right, and I know they do. I've been out before where I've experienced it myself, and then you still go online because it's maybe more affordable or something like that. But if you can nail that customer service experience, it's more likely that they will then purchase from you, and become a customer of yours. But if you can't get that right, then what loyalty do they have? What reason do they have to stay there? And I guess it's from the other side too. I imagine being in that industry or any customer service industry, you may give good customer service, and if you get rejection from the client and you get rejection again and you feel like you're giving them everything and they just keep going online, then you're going to become disgruntled and then probably stop giving good service,
Yeah.
Like anything. Like, if you keep giving something really 100% powerful, passionate, and you're not getting that respect in return, you'll end up sort of blocking it.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to that point where I think like apathy is sort of like the sort of the basic point that we've all reached, when you see somebody in that environment. And if you imagine like like the rejection thing is so perfect in terms of the comparison, because, just like at a nightclub, if you have people walking past you and not engaging with you, or you're approaching them and then they turn you down, you start to develop this frustration, and you start to kind of come up with a strategy that's built from a negative place. And then you start to perceive things about the next person who could be this dream client. And unfortunately, you've already kind of set, course on like a negative path. And I think that's creating a turnaround there is tough, but I don't think it's impossible.
No, I like that. So listen to your customers. Good advice. Doesn't seem like rocket science, and I love the idea of asking those right questions. And that's something to really think about, no matter, like you've just made me think about, okay, what questions can I ask better to individualize, my service offering to my clients? And that's pretty powerful as well.
Yeah.
You talk about speaking with confidence and conviction. What do you mean there as far as customer service goes?
Yeah. I mean, I love to compare everything back to talking to girls at nightclubs. I think that
I was never good at that. So
yeah, me neither. I had a friend who was really good at it, and one thing that when I always share the story of him is that he didn't just have like, he had confidence, but he also had like a repertoire, and so when he would talk to girls, he had a response that kept him kind of in the pocket of confidence much longer than just the average guy. And so he would ask a girl like, "Hey, do you want to go and let's dance?" And a really typical response that a girl might say is, I have a boyfriend or something. And he had a response for that. So he would say, well, is he treating you the way that you want to be treated? And I would stand there, and my buddies and I would stand there and watch this guy, and we would be in absolute like terror of like, how can he do this? How could he say these things? And then these girls would say, well, no, he's not. And then suddenly he's dancing with another girl that we never could have talked to. And I think going back to now in a service environment, having like a playbook that you operate from doesn't mean that you're a pre-programmed robot, but to be able to have a few kind of really built-in rehearsed responses, I think is really essential. In the same way that like if you're going to sing karaoke, you're always going to sound better if you're singing a song that you know versus a song where you're reading the lyrics as you're singing it. And I think for a lot of our new service professionals, like in any industry, what they're trying to do is maybe follow the lines of something or just kind of make something up on the fly. And we've given them so much autonomy that they don't really have a direction in terms of how to maintain the culture of that business in terms of communication. And so I love like, we do some training with our team on these 3 words, if, then, love. And so if I say, so how are we feeling about this house? It's the 3-bedroom, 4-bath option with the backyard. And then at that point, I might be saying all the right things. And then I could say, because if you sort of like it, I kind of like it. I mean, I think it might be good. And suddenly now I've just started to diminish and tried to qualify everything that I've just said beforehand. But if I said, Lee, I believe that we found the house. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, and if this works for you, then I would love to get the mortgage paperwork started. And now it's coming across clear. If gives people an option so they don't feel backed into a corner, then is communicating that I have a plan, like there's a natural kind of process to it. And love is probably the most powerful word ever invented, and I think about how many times I've heard even our staff, when they say things like, you're going to really, really like this, is sort of, it diminishes a word like love. If they said, if you sort of kind of feel like it, then let me know, and we have all of these exchanges that unfortunately become, part of like the recency bias of our clients. They walk away from that. They sit in their car and they're like, what was he asking me to do again? I forget. I'll just see them another time, and when I use something like that, it's just, it's not giving somebody an entire script to memorize. It's just 3 kind of key points, to kind of embolden them and give them that confident, communicating. Yeah,
I love that. That's very powerful. And if then love, I just like something that you can easily remember, and, you can put that rehearsed, and after time, it'll just be sunk in, it'll be second nature to you. But then speaking with that conviction and confidence, and I guess being a bit more direct with what you're asking, but showing respect that you've listened to them, and that, you're confident that you've got the right answer for their problem as well.
For sure. I think back to how many times, if I could give myself a pep talk in high school or something, how many times I was trying to ask a girl to a school dance or something like that. And it was just it was like siege warfare. It was like I would circle the wagons around the castle and then try to starve them out, and it was just talking about in a roundabout way of what I wanted instead of just asking directly. And sometimes it took the girl saying, are you asking me to the dance? Because I'll go with you, and then sometimes we'll have clients that'll kind of bail us out like this. And your new professional might feel like they were 100% responsible for the success of that interaction, even though they had somebody that was just a great listener, or maybe they were just got bailed out at the last second.
Nice. I know you obviously got some teams, big teams around you there. What advice would you give as far as in parting with this love and the passion that you have for customer service onto team members? Because they have to have some sort of inner drive too, and obviously you do as a co-business owner. Mm-hmm. How do you pass that on and get them to be able to be the same as you and giving that customer service experience?
Yeah, great question. I really believe that if there isn't, when it comes to being a trainer, it's just like, having kids and stuff, that self-discovery is such a huge part of kind of learning how to be a parent or learning how to be a trainer or business owner. When you understand like the power of self-discovery, it's like the big unlock. And for example, my daughter, my daughter's worn the same. She has this favorite dress. She's worn it 3 times this week. It completely breaks all of the social norms I would expect from her. She's 3. My 5-year-old is wearing my wife's makeup to school, and we just kind of go with it because we realize that their self-discovery of putting their own clothes on and putting on makeup and things like that is a confidence building activity. It's powerful to them. And for me to come in and try to break that, I would be the villain in that position. And so going back to training on service, what we try to do is we'll take a scenario and we might say, okay, we're going to do this the wrong way. And I want you to we're going to completely botch this, we're going to ask the student if they want to participate at this big competition. And then we're going to do it the wrong way. And now when we do it the wrong way first, everyone's laughing, we're having a great time. And now they're starting to kind of understand the opposite of what the real, the productive way might be. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to do it the right way. And now I want you to see like what's different. And we might even have our person playing the role of the client. They have to now pinpoint what was the specific thing that was different from version 1 to version 2. And so they're kind of acting like customer service detectives in that role. And we'll even tell them that, put your detective's hats on. And then we'll do a third version of it where we will talk about, this is going to be somebody who had the right intentions. They weren't trying to be really bad. They were actually trying to be good, but something was slightly off. And now that's kind of going, instead of a really obvious customer service crime scene, it's now something that would require like a customer service, kind of like, I think I said customer cervix. Sorry about that. So you can edit that out. But now you're having to use a customer service like forensics team. Like you have to dig in a little bit deeper. And maybe they said, maybe we go back to the if then love. Maybe they just said, everything was great, but then they left out the ending of it, and they didn't transition really well or something. And now if the person playing the client can pick that out, we have self-discovery. And that's how they can now take ownership of it. And I love that study, and I forget the name of it, but I think it was in Thinking Fast and Slow. And they talked about these people would do origami, and they would sell origami at these little shops. And the value that they placed on the origami that they did themselves was higher than the origami that they would buy from other people. And so I really believe that self-discovery takes an idea and then it turns it into something that's more valuable, because they're not renting it from you as the trainer, but they're owning it for them as the receiver of the information.
Yeah. So giving people the tools and the information, but then letting them assemble it in their own way is probably the powerful thing there. They talked about that in Think Fast and whatever it was called, Think Fast and Slow.
Oh yeah, and they call it there's also the IKEA effect too. They talked about that people. The IKEA effect. Yeah, when you build your own furniture, you actually take more pride in it, and versus if you just bought it pre-assembled or something.
Wasn't it the same with baking? Like, didn't they have an example about women baking, and baking from scratch, or versus using a kit?
Yeah, they talked about. I think it was Betty Crocker. And that even though her cake mix only requires like 2 extra ingredients, you would have the same sense of accomplishment and pride in what you made because you mixed it together, versus if you bought a cake that was really, exactly.
It's simple. I like it, man. Look, a lot of wisdom. Any final thoughts before we depart? And I guess how can people best learn more about you?
Yeah. Well, I think overall, I really believe, like I said earlier, that dancing is a skill that you can learn. Like nobody is born a dancer, even if people have, like a Latin American origin, those people contact us all the time and say, I am from Mexico. My family's, just moved here, and everyone expects me to know how to salsa, and I can't, and it's crazy to just think that, but your brain is a marketing machine, and it's going to convince you of anything outside your comfort zone. Alarm bells are going to go on, and more pop-up ads are going to come up, and you're going to convince yourself that this was a nature thing, and I don't have the nature, and really it's a nurture skill. And I believe the same thing about people skills. I believe the same thing about customer service, is that every single organization, no one is going to be worse off if they worked on people skills in their industry, regardless of what it is. We're all in the people industry. And I think that when we assume it's going to be nature, it's the easy way out. It's kind of taking the shortcut, and it's keeping us the same. And our businesses have to adapt moving forward, even if the losses of clients due to bad customer service didn't register to big businesses. Hopefully with the kind of full stop of the pandemic helped us register and give us an opportunity to kind of rebuild the right way. In the same way that, sometimes it takes an earthquake here in San Francisco to retrofit buildings, and that's what it took. And to shake things down to the rubble kind of taught us how to build things better and more effective to be able to withstand things moving forward. And I don't think that, hopefully we're not going to see another pandemic like this in our lifetime. But I think what we can do is build from the rubble of the pandemic and turn our businesses into something better than they were before. So we're not slowly kind of leaking away all these opportunities.
100%. Yeah. And how can people best reach you, mate?
Yeah. So my website is Chris Lynam, my name, .co. And so the book is available on like all major platforms. So it's available on Amazon, on Target, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads, the whole 9 yards. So
Stick a show note, a link in the show note, guys, the Choreography of Customer Service. So click the link and get the book.
There we go.
Mate, awesome, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us today. Pleasure, and thanks for sharing all that you do.
For sure. Lee, it was great to chat with you, man. I'm excited and really honored to be on the show, and it was just, I love the questions that you asked. Made it super easy.
It's been awesome, mate. No, thank you so much. This is, I think, episode 1029, guys. Check it out at hiddenwhy.com. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families. You can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcasts. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link, it helps support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe, or subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name is Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.